Hello everybody, my name is TV Skyn, and no, I don't know why I started this video this way. I just had I was sitting down to do it, and I had the impulse, why don't I start with, like, the opening bars of The Lion Sleeps Tonight? And I don't know, I couldn't get it out of my head, so I did it. Anyway, Overwatch. Now, the first thing to know about Overwatch is that it is a product of Blizzard Entertainment, and if you guys thought I was done ranting about the level of profound and greedy cowardice on display from their upper management yesterday when we talked about the Diablo trailer, my friends, you are sorely mistaken. No, I have got bile to go around. And indeed, Blizzard management are cowardly, greedy snake people who prioritize their business dealings with the Chinese market and with the Chinese government over the freedom of, you know, literally anybody who lives in China or anywhere, frankly. So there's that, and I know it's annoying to have to listen to, but I would feel nauseous if I talked about Blizzard products without bringing up the fact that their management are bastard snake people. So, with that out of the way, I am a fucking sucker for Overwatch cinematics. Like, I just am. I am. Like, when I saw this thing the first time, when they showed it at BlizzCon, I was this fucking, like, I had the tears in my eyes and some of them rolling down my cheeks, and I was this fucking close to just actually sobbing. Because I am a mark. I am weak. I am so fucking easy for this style of cinematic. And not just for like the visual style, but for the, like, melodramatic, extremely sincere, very child-friendly, ultimately. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Very family-friendly, kind of clean-cut, but still, like, just painfully, emotionally obvious thing. Like, it works on me, it just does. When they released The Last Bastion, I sobbed. Like, I was watching the thing, the robot has PTSD, but the bird still loves him. I was a mess. A fucking mess. And I'm a mark for this. Like, this shit works completely on me. It fucking gets me every single time, and I'm not too proud to admit that. I'm a sap for this bullshit. That doesn't mean I can't see that it's bullshit. Like, that doesn't mean I'm like, uncritically enthusiastic about it. It just means that this is the exact, like, style of thing that tugs on my particular heartstrings. And mother bastards at Blizzard are so fucking good at it. Like, they genuinely are, and this is something I say even as other companies, like especially Riot, have been doing a lot of work in trying to bring their own, like, animated cinematics and stuff up to a level, like, they're aspiring to get to the kind of level that Blizzard is already at, and where Blizzard is staying, and where Blizzard keeps escalating from, because they are truly masters of this particular form. And I want to recognize that, like, the artists, the designers, the animators, the writers, the workers at Blizzard do absolutely fucking incredible work, and it's just a pity that that work benefits and generates profit for unprincipled, greedy, snake bastard assholes, executive CEOs, and shareholders. So, let's actually get into the animation and the storytelling of this thing. And as a slightly unusual move, we'll be talking a little bit about the music and the sound design as well, which is something I usually don't do, because, like, when I'm doing these things, I'm clicking around everywhere, and I'm just like, and listening to that in audio is painful and annoying, and I don't have a convenient way to control the music that's playing in the background here while I'm doing this, so it's gonna be a bit janky. I ask you to bear with me, and I'm sure some of you are already tuned out after all the political, big air quotes, ranting that I did at the start. So let's begin in a sensible place, which would be the beginning. So, there's a lot of setup being done in the start of this thing, and the first setup we see is, okay, we have Overwatch, but oh hey, look, they're literally torn apart. Oh, right, because Overwatch is torn. It's a family that's sort of been torn apart in the inside, and it's... all right, I see. Like, the visual metaphor here is not at all subtle, but it kind of sets the stage that this is... Yeah, it's Overwatch, but things are... It's not Overwatch in the glory days, it's Overwatch after quite a lot of wear and tear has taken its toll on the whole organization. Simple storytelling, but it works. And that's something that's all over this thing. It's just extremely simplistic storytelling, but it fucking works. Like, it's basic, but they do it really, really fucking well. And we have these opening shots. When I first saw this, I was a bit confused. Like, why is everything sort of rustling? Is there an earthquake? What's going on? Of course, it's a transport ship. I didn't that wasn't immediately communicated to me. I imagine other people probably got it faster than I did. But the important thing about these shots in particular is, well, first of all, that the seats are empty. Like, that's what the shots are showing. But also, they're showing something about how the people who used to be here related to this particular space. Jack Morrison himself hung up a picture of his own surprise birthday party. He's got his dog tags hanging over there. And he's got a couple of grenades ready to go because soldier. Then we go to Amara, like, what's her name? Farah's mother, Anna's spot, and you can see she has also personalized and customized her space, a picture of her holding her newborn daughter, Farah. And also, she's done a little stencil of, like, her eye of, is it the Eye of Isis, Eye of Horus, something like that? Her own particular symbol on the wall. She has customized the space. She's made it more specific to her. Then we get Torbjorn's space, and he's just got pictures of his kids and his friends hanging up all over. And again, the point here, and especially once we get to Mercy Siegler, we see that this is not just a transport ship, right? It's not, it is a transport ship that you go places in, but it's also something of a home for these people. It's a place that they want to personalize, customize. They make that space their own. And the point of having, like, having the books that she's clearly reading while on the ways to missions, the picture that runs to her friends, and this thing, I'm sure that thing is a reference to something, but I'm not deep enough into Overwatch lore to know what that is. The point of all of that is to show the emptiness, is to show that all the detritus, all the mess that a person leaves behind, all the little things that people do to a living space is there, but the people themselves are gone. And again, extremely basic visual storytelling, but it works, and it's incredibly important because one of the major points of this thing is, well, the family has been torn apart. Wouldn't it be nice if we can get them back together? And so here we see, like, the space at maximum emptiness. And there we see the family that Winston is still highly nostalgic for and wishes would come back. And this character, who has she was there all along, she's always been there, she's always been an important part of the original Overwatch lineup. Everybody knew about her. Like, she was, they were always talking about her, and we definitely knew about her before, and she's here in the group photo now, even though she definitely also was in all of the previous group photos. She was in the background, so, like, Reinhardt was in the way, he's big. I joke. I'm sure they've set this character up ahead of time because Blizzard are like that, but for me it was a little bit like, oh, all these characters I remember from Overwatch 1, and then who is this Canadian person? I don't know. I have not seen her before, and like, what's she doing here? It's like all of a sudden coming to a family gathering and see an uncle that you've never met, and everybody else is greeting him like an old friend. You're just like, what's this stranger doing in our house, Mom? But anyway, that's something I've always liked about the way Overwatch approaches photographs, by the way, in their aesthetic and cinematic, is that everything else is rendered in 3D, but then photographs are done as illustrations. Like, this is a 2D illustration created by an artist, which is, I could spend some time talking about, like, in terms of art history and the artifice and the René Magritte, Cécile Parent-Pipe, and all of those, like, signs and signifiers and symbols. That's very fun. But I just like that as an aesthetic, that Overwatch is even more cartoony in photographs than it is in, air quotes, its real life, where it is still very cartoony indeed, as we can see from Winston here. Now, in the Diablo short that I talked about yesterday, the cinematic teaser trailer thing, something I talked about a lot was the subtle facial acting that was being used on those characters to communicate, like, their feelings, their moods, their internal life. And that's something the Blizzard has always been very good at doing, and the animators that they work with. And Winston here is no different. Especially his nostrils are used a lot to communicate his mood, particularly, I guess because he's a gorilla. Is this thing in 60 FPS? No, it's, oh, thank God, not. And please stop doing that. So the nostrils in particular, pay attention to what they do in Winston's face, because here, you can see him, he's looking down at this picture, and he's nostalgic for it, but you can also see, like, there's this sense of disappointment and sadness and almost a little bit of resentment, like that the others are not here, but not anger. And look at that tiny little, like, you see his nostrils just flare a little bit with the emotion, with the tension. And the same thing happens with stuff like, take a look at his lips. Like, his lips are very expressive on this particular character. Like that little gesture where he kind of he kind of does a little sniff or pulls himself together. That little movement of the mouth, like from being relaxed to being just a little bit more tense. And it does so much to communicate the character's emotion, which is something that is actually, in some ways, it's easier with Overwatch characters because I suspect their facial rigs are not quite as extensive and complex as the ones they use for the Diablo 4 cinematics. They might be. Like, they might have as many control points and as many control axes to work with, but I would suspect they have less because the designs are much simpler. And the thing about a much simpler design is you get more expressiveness by default, because that's just how the human brain deals with simpler faces, is they become more expressive. But it also becomes, at least in my opinion, when I work with that kind of stuff, it becomes harder to communicate really subtle emotional states. Because you have fewer, like, you have less stuff to work with. Like, you can't necessarily do a little crease in the skin exactly where you need it. You can't necessarily, like, and so that's something that the Overwatch animators are really, really good at, is using these character designs where the faces especially are really, really simplistic when you get right down to it, to create complex emotional ideas in a lot of them, which is something that they're better at in some characters than others because of some character design limitations that maybe we'll talk about over the course of this thing. But I love this shot. This is our first shot of Mei in the Overwatch transport machine, transport thing. And what's the first thing you notice about her? Like, how, as a character, what does she look like? What does it look like she feels? How does it look like she feels in the space that she's in? And the answer to that is not comfortable. She doesn't really fit in. Literally, she doesn't fit in because she's sitting in Reinhardt's seat, which is literally too big for her. And the visual metaphor here, again, is like, it's very on the nose in that she's literally not able to fill the space that they left behind, right? She's the only one who came back when Winston called, like, it was Tracer and Mei were the ones who showed up. Which, like, wow, that's sucks when your extended family says no to an invitation like that. But Tracer and Mei were the only ones who showed up, and here in this shot we see, literally, that she cannot fill the space. Like, it's literally like she's stepping into shoes that are too big for her to fill. Because, of course, that's Mei's story in this particular short, is that this is really her first Overwatch mission, sort of, and she's a rookie. She doesn't really know what she's doing yet. She's not a soldier. She's a scientist with a super weapon who's, like, trying to do her best, but she's not Reinhardt. She's not those experienced Overwatch veterans. She's not that. She doesn't really fit into the Overwatch family just yet. And all of that comes across in this shot where she's sitting sort of awkwardly holding on to her freeze juice tank, kind of a little bit hunched over, a little bit kind of clinging to it almost like a safety blanket a little bit, in a chair that's way too big for her, in a space that she cannot fill, a role that she cannot fill, either for Winston or for Overwatch itself. And that's her story over the course of this thing, is her going from being someone who doesn't quite have a space in Overwatch, doesn't quite, like, she comes into her own over the course of the story. At least that's the story arc for Mei in particular, that runs through this thing. And what I love about this shot is that it communicates so much, and you don't get that consciously, really, when you watch it, because it's, like, in terms of how long that shot lasts, it's like you get 1, 2 seconds, maybe, on that shot, but the feeling is there. And that's what Blizzard have become so fucking good at, especially when it comes to their shorts, is they give so much emotional information to the viewer so very quickly. You can even see it in Mei's body language as she asks, do we have enough people for this mission? You can see her uncertainty. And that she's like, she's almost kind of bracing for him to get mad with her, because she's not quite sure if it's an appropriate question to ask. Like, she's uncertain, she's unsure, she's worried. And so she's clinging to her juice, and she's, like, sitting there kind of hunched over with the shoulders up and this like, tilted head and that very demure demeanor. And you can see how Winston responds to that. Like, he takes this very fatherly approach to Mei, very encouraging. Wait, look at the change in his body language. Like, look how his shoulders shift, especially. From here, when he's still kind of tense in his looking at the picture of the past and kind of having regrets and stuff like that, But then once he begins to encourage Mei, look how his shoulders kind of tilt forward and his whole body language tilts forward towards her because he's trying to relate to her. He's trying to reassure her. He's trying to, be helpful to her. So long as we stick together, everything will be fine. Again, very basic acting, but it's really well executed and it works really well for communicating the relationship between these two characters, is that Winston leans forward towards her to reassure her. And then this shot, like, again, the point, that's why we had these shots establishing the empty chairs, is that so we get this pan over the whole thing with these two characters. Even though Winston is huge, like, the whole space feels empty, devoid. It feels like a lot is missing because they're basically squirreled away here at the bottom of the shot. They don't take up any of the frame. Like, think, on the other hand, if the shot was, like, from a lower perspective and Mei and Winston took up most of the frame, because we were looking like from somewhere over here on the floor down the aisle, and they took up most of the frame, so they were like kind of filling the space, you get a very different feeling. But because it's like this slightly tilted shot from above where the chairs, the empty chairs, are dominating most of the space, that's the feeling that you get, is that feeling of emptiness. And by the way, Mei's adorable little drone. Let's have a look at him. Like, he's just adorable. Like, the way that he moves. Look at this. It's nothing that special. It's just cute. Like, look at those little eyes. Those little, like, look how they kind of deform almost like raindrops for the blink. And like that, you can see, here you can really see the arc of his motion. He starts up here. And then you can see he kind of lowers down, swings around, and then he raises back up. And that's just such a good, fluid, nice motion. Works really well for the character. I just like him. And by the way, apologies for the sniffing. I'm still getting over a rather bad cold. So there's gotta be some sniffing. I might have to mute the audio to blow my nose at some point because I record these in one take, so. And by the way, speaking of shot composition here, here's the emptiness, right? Here's the, oh, well, everyone's missing and we only have 3 people. We might be a little bit screwed here. And then as Winston really, like, because the thing he does here is, what's on your mind, Mei? Do we have enough people for this mission? And then Winston's response to that is to reassure her. Like, this is when he says, so long as we stick together, everything will be fine. And look how he's framed in this shot. Rather than, like, just before, we have this shot where they look too small to fill the space, right? Then here, we have a shot where Winston fills the entire space. Because he has the confidence. He has, like, so long as we stick together, everything will be fine. And you believe him. Like, you believe that he believes that. Because look how he's got this confident pose. He's filling up the full space. He's smiling. He's happy. Like, and you kind of look at him from below so that our eye line would be somewhere around here. His eye line is up here. So he's in a position of authority and power. And this is just like very basic film language. Like, nothing special about it. But it's just very well executed. And you can see Mei takes up this little, like, what, quarter of the screen? Like, not even a quarter, like a fifth of the screen over here, and everything else is dominated by the huge form of Winston, which again, it communicates that feeling. And again, look at Winston's body language. Again, his response to Mei's uncertainty is to lean forward, like to offer the confidence of himself to her. And you can see it works. Like, she's like, she goes from worried, and this is such a lovely expression transition, to, oh, okay. Like, you can see the moment when she believes him. You can see the moment where she goes from uncertainty and fear. And just that you see that little tiny change in the eyebrows, going from like this like sloped uncertain position to slight relaxation. And you can see she relaxes just a little bit and she becomes more sure and she believes in Winston. Like, oh, it's so subtle. Like, there's almost nothing happening. It's just her mouth changes a little bit and her jaw, like, changes a little bit. It goes from slack to slightly more tense in a smile. And then her eyebrows does that thing. And you see that complete transformation of her mood. And it's so good. Like, that's just good animation. Anyway, Blizzard's management remain bastard greedy snake people. Just thought I'd bring that up. But their animators, holy shit, their animators are good. And again, the robot. Such a cute design. Look at him. He's adorable. I want one. Like, once they make a floating robot drone thing designed like this guy, I want one. Just to fly around my house and be cute at me. If you're going to show, now would be a good time. So the picture is being set up as well. Like, the picture is clearly, it's important to Winston. You can see him kind of caressing it with his hand as he puts it up on the wall, almost as though to reach out to his friends who he really wants to help him. And again, look at the expressiveness of that mouth, those lips. Like, the mouth does a hell of a lot of the work for Winston, especially. Like here, like the moment when he's done talking, and you can see the determination as he begins to, he grits his teeth just a little bit, like he kind of pushes his lips together and goes, now would be a good time. And you get the feeling that's being communicated here. And then Tracer, of course, pipes up and takes over the shot. And I like this shot a lot because it's so cheerful. Like, you really get, again, it's that ability to immediately communicate what we need to know about the characters. And with Tracer, her first movement, her first motion is arm high up in the air. Like, not just a little gesture, but like, ta-da! Cavalry's here, love! Cheerio! Pip, pip, tut, tut, and all that! So you get, again, immediately you get a sense of her personality. Even though we don't get to see her face, really, we do get to see that she keeps a picture of her girlfriend on the dashboard, which I like. And also, you can also see it in the way that her hand moves. Like when she's doing the thing on the control board. But like, again, that establishment of personality, even if you have never seen Overwatch before, if you know absolutely fuck all about it, within like a minute and 10 seconds, before you even see Tracer's face, you know the personalities of the people involved. May is, like, inexperienced and unsure. Winston is sort of fatherly and caring and nurturing and sort of the reassuring leader of the team. And Tracer is an adorable goofball who is just unconcerned about anything. Now, notice the motion with which she does this. Right, that little, she's like, it's almost like she's clicking piano keys. She's doing like this little, ta-ta, and then finishing it off with a little tap, pop. Like, and again, that's part of her personality. You could do that more slowly and robotically, or like more languidly, but Tracer does it with a little jaunty, like a rhythm, and that's very much her personality coming on display as well. And also, look at all that head waggling. Like, that's something I quite like about Overwatch animation style in these shorts. Look how much Tracer waggles her head around when she speaks. Like, up and down and forward with the neck, and then waggling her head a little bit. And da-da-da-da. And again, you get the sense of personality in her, like that adventurous spirit that she's got going on. It works so damn well. And so again, Winston, that's our cue. Look at his body language. He remains reassuring, fatherly. Like, it's this shot again. We've already seen this shot, but he's taking up even more space now. He's leaning forward even more because he's reassuring May. And this is something I noticed about Paris. Every single other city in, like, Overwatch is, like, full of tech shit. Like, just tech shit over the glowing lights, towers, like, glass paneling, all this, like, tech shit all over the place. And then they get to Paris. And with Paris, is like, first of all, they've rebuilt the Notre Dame, which I'm good. Like, I'm glad it survived the fire. But also just, no, it looks like Paris in the present. Like, they haven't changed a goddamn thing. Because, yeah, the French would be like that, wouldn't they? Like, they would be like, oh, Paris, no. None of that technology crap, no. We have the Francais, the Paris, which is always going to be as it was, the city of lights. Ah, beautiful. Eh? Oh, we don't care. We're French. Apologies to the nation of France, but I do like the little bit of communication here that, unlike pretty much every single other city in Overwatch, the Overwatch universe, France has retained its historical architecture. It's done preservation on its city rather than charging headlong into the glorious future like everywhere else does. France clings a little bit to its past, which I quite like. And it also establishes a really nice contrast visually, by the way, that France, we have this old school, old European style architecture and the trees and all of that stuff, contrasted against the villains of our piece, which is Nullsec, which are hard, cold, unfeeling metal robots who we don't have to feel bad about murdering by the dozens, even though we do know that in this universe robots can have a consciousness, even if they just seem to be mindless drones, because Bastion does. So it might be that when you're killing these robot soldiers that seem to be so mindless, you're actually destroying thousands of completely sentient consciousnesses, and they are in pain the entire time while they're dying. Just thought I'd point that out, because, you know, why not make this depressing? So, perspectives. First, like, they go over here and Nullsec sees that they're coming. Here we see things from the perspective kind of almost like a child looking at these robot soldiers marching through their city, right? The robot soldier here towers above us, and just rows and rows of soldiers are marching past like an invading army. So we're immediately put in a sense of, okay, these things are dangerous. These things are, and again, very, very simple cinematic language, very simple filmmaking, but it works because it's executed perfectly. And then we get this shot, which is like almost like a news helicopter flying above, which of course is the perspective of our heroes, the Overwatch crew, looking down on the situation below and trying to assess what the hell is going on. So we cut to inside and we see, it's Tracer's perspective we've been seeing. She's the one who's been looking out the window. She's assessing the situation, giving the command to Winston, telling him like what needs to be done. Did she always have that ear clip on, by the way? I like it. It's a good look on her. And again, like, France just looks like France. Unchangeable. And again, notice the framing here. May, once again, is uncertain. Like, why is Nullsec attacking now? And you can see that communicated in her body language. She's kind of holding on to the side of the ship, almost hiding a little bit behind Winston and sort of cowering a little bit inside the ship with that uncertain hand protecting her chest, going like, but why are Nullsec attacking now? She doesn't know the situation. And look at Winston's face and his body language. By contrast, he's like, well, I don't know, but it doesn't matter because we have to go down there and help them. You can see that in his expression, his determination. And again, that's just really good basic animation. Like, that's good acting, which is the thing that I feel like a lot of people sort of forget about animation, is that the animators and the riggers, especially the riggers, who work on these things, they're not just doing, like, moving around a puppet in 3D space. They're acting. They're doing the emotional work that an actor does. They're just doing it through a different medium. So whoever works on these animations for Winston is doing Winston's acting. And there can also be stuff like performance capture, motion capture, stuff like that to help it. But ultimately, the animator is the actor in these things, working in collaboration with the voice actor, with like the sound design team, with the visual and lighting and effects team to get the performance out of the characters that you want, which is something I like to bring up because people like Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, has been very fond of trying to say that, no, when I do performance capture, it's all my performance. It's all my acting on screen. The animators just help, like, but I'm the actor. And that's because he really wants to get an Oscar for his performances, which I get, but oh boy, there's a lot of people, like, shitting on character animators and especially motion capture animators and be like, oh, they don't matter. It's the people in the fancy suits doing the motion capture. They're the real stars of the show. I resent that a little bit because a lot of hard work goes into this shit. Anyway, that's a tangent that's not about this at all. And again, you can see it in his body language, like where May is all like, look at the way May moves in that shot. Like, look at the arcs of motion that her body is taking. You can see this kind of popping up, like almost like she's moving upwards a little bit, going like, oh, what's going on? And then she settles back down. And then look at Winston's, like, the visuals of his body language instead. He does that little head nod, like, we have to help them. Like, he reacts with certainty. He only moves laterally, and then he does that head nod where May is like kind of bouncing up and down a little bit in her motion. And it works so well. And you can see he does it again there. That same little confident head nod, like, brush. And then he jumps out of a plane. And I like the use of gravity here. Like, in reality, of course, gravity acts on any given object with a constant force. Like, you fall at a constantly accelerating speed, 9.84 something newtons g something something. But this isn't real life. This is 3D animation, so first of all, we can do squash and stretch. So here, it's hard to see because they add so much fucking motion blur to these things. Winston squashes down and gets ready for the leap, and look how his body stretches. Like, you can really see his chest kind of going boing, like a cartoon character, which is what he is. Really stretching out, and you can see how his lower body kind of has to catch up with him in the middle of the jump. And then his anatomy is restored to normal state. That's squash and stretch, which is a very basic animation principle, and I love seeing it used in 3D animation. Disney uses it a lot. Pixar uses it somewhat less than Disney, I think. But anyway, gravity. Like, in real life, of course, he would be falling at a constant, permanent rate, but here, because we're doing cartoon physics, he can jump up into the air and just kind of stay there. He's just kind of hanging there for a bit, and then gravity takes hold. Now, this is something that in game design is called coyote time, which is basically like when anytime you have like the Wile E. Coyote running out over a ledge, and he's like, I'm running, and then he takes a moment to notice that he's no longer on solid ground, and the moment he notices, he falls. That's the principle at work here, where we can give Winston this cool hero shot where we kind of delay gravity a little bit. It doesn't quite take effect on him yet, and there we go. Now he's falling at full speed. And again, you can see May, like, she's still uncertain. She's still kind of clinging on and hiding a little bit, but you can also see she's impressed by him. She's amazed by what she's seeing, by his bravery, by what he's doing. And so we get this shot. This is almost a little slightly Wes Anderson-ish shot, like this completely side-on, and then characters moving across it almost like it's a stage. But it works quite well here, because like this little girl here, I didn't even notice her the first time I saw this animated short, because I was focused on the robot guy running after and the policewoman shooting and the bolts flying around. But I really like this completely steady shot where the only stuff that's moving through it are the actors and like the bullets that are flying. Instead of doing, you could do like a on the ground handheld camera thing, like some cameraman was running behind the little girl and watching her fall, and then we pan up to the robot who picks her up, and then to the policewoman who's firing back. But instead we get this steady shot, which allows us a moment to kind of take in the scene. And again, this robot futuristic car, which is nonetheless still designed to look like an old 1960s Citroën, because la France, of course. Ah ouais. And here's just a bunch of good character acting. Like, again, the girl falling, boom. And then the robot, and it's such a good motion, because you can see, even as she's falling, even as she's entering the screen, he's trying to shield her. You can see his body language is all about spreading himself out, so that nothing, like, so that something hits him before it hits her. And that immediately gets you that sense of him being very protective of her, trying to defend her. It's not clear to me whether he's like her robot dad in like a mixed relationship with a human, and she's like his daughter, or if he's another police person, because he is wearing that protective vest thing. So maybe he's some kind of civil servant. It's not really clear, but what is clear is that he's doing the work of keeping this girl safe. And I really like that. And this is just good animation. Like, look at the way the animator manages the weight. He lands on one foot, then he lands on the second, and you can see his entire momentum. Like, he has this forward momentum, he has to push back against it, so you can see his foot there is doing the work of stopping him so that he doesn't run past. And you can see that he sinks down on one knee, and then the other leg there for stability, and then he reaches down, grabs the girl, gets up, and this is such a good pose. Look at this key pose. Like, from here to this is just such a solid pose. Like, you really get the sense of his motion and his acting as he drags her up from the ground and runs. Now, instead of spreading himself out, he's hunching over because he's trying to protect them both, like, by minimizing their profile against enemy fire. And it's just, oh, it's just good animation. It's just rock-solid good animation. Moving on to the policewoman, another bit of great animation. When he stops, she stops immediately to fire back and try to protect him so he has time to pick up the little girl. And again, look at that key pose. That's such a solid, planted action pose, right? And you can see her, like, she runs into the scene, she lands on this foot, she pivots. She pivots her entire weight around that, then lands with the back foot to stabilize herself, and then she starts firing back. And you can see the recoil of the gun pushing her backwards, right? Like, you can see how the recoil is affecting her body. And then as she realizes, okay, he's got her, he's moving on, she ducks down as well into that loping, and oh, look at that, look at that. She shifts all of her weight onto this leg, and you can see how the back leg kind of pushes off, and then that leg, whoom, pushes her into the run. And again, this stuff is like basic, just basic good animation, but it's really fucking hard because you have to be conscious of the character's weight. You have to be conscious of their physicality. What are they doing? Where is their weight going? How can you make the character move in a way that feels believable while still getting them through the scene in the amount of time that you need for the sound design and like for the direction and like and the storyboarding. Ah, it's all I love. Like I said, I'm a mark for this shit. Like, I'm so easy. I'm the easiest lay in the world for this bullshit. And so I will gush about it in a video that's... Oh my god, we are 2 minutes in and this video is 35 minutes long. This is gonna take forever. And again, he's putting his body between... Like, even though the car is there, he's still putting his body between the little girl and the things that are shooting. I love his mustache, by the way. I love that little character design detail. That's good. That's really good. Like, you can see she lands with one foot, then the other one, and then her weight just kind of plummets down behind the car. And she scrambles to kind of position herself safely. Like, that little scramble there, like, holy shit, we're in trouble. You really get the sense that, like, she's kind of scrambling for her life here. It's not like a Keanu Reeves John Wick move where there's this perfect confidence in motion. He knows exactly what he's doing at all times. There is this, oh shit, I need to get into better position. Scramble, scramble, scramble with my legs. Whoom. You can also kind of see that here. Like, again, when we're talking about the body language of characters and their emotional states and how they're feeling, when she's firing back at them, and we get that look at her as she stands up behind the car to fire back at the robots. Like, what's her mood? Like, from that brief little, like, how long is that shot? Like a second and a half? Like, maybe 2 seconds there. Like, what was her mood? What was her feeling as a character? Like, how is she relating to this situation right here? Well, it's pretty damn well on display. She's like, holy fuck, I'm so fucking screwed. I'm just a cop. I just do parking tickets. I wasn't supposed to be fighting robots in a street war. Holy shit. Like, you get that sense that she's overwhelmed. She's in over her head. She's afraid. She's uncertain. But she's still braving it, right? But look at her pose when she stands up. Like, her shoulders are all the way up around her ears, so like her head is all the way down. It's not that confident action pose of, haha, I am the soldier in control of everything. Bang, bang, shooting the robots. No, it's, God, fire at them. Goddamn, get them away. It is that sense of, like, she's just kind of firing, hoping to make them take cover or stop shooting for a second. And she's kind of realized at this point that her bullets don't do really very much to these things. She doesn't have a weapon that's really capable of standing up to them. Fortunately, she has a gorilla. Look at the squash and stretch on Winston's arm here. Or is that squash and stretch? Is that just perspective? It's kind of hard to tell because his hands are so big. But this is a really good, like, because when we look up here, again, we're talking about perspectives, we see the robot looks up and the camera follows. And so now we're seeing Winston from the robot's perspective, and the robot is about to get owned. It's like, and I like that he falls at his mouth first. Like, it's not his arm, it's not his gun, it's just these, I'm gonna bite your face off, nom. And this is where, again, you can see there's so much fucking motion blur going on in these shots. And it annoys me because I want to see these things cleanly and clearly. But what that motion blur does is it covers up for a lot of squash and stretch here. Like, you can see that as Winston lands, you can see how his body is being stretched. Like, that arm is really long, and then boom, all of a sudden he's all the way down. So because they have all this motion blur, it kind of covers up the fact that they're doing some really rather extreme distortions of the character's body in order to communicate the power of the motion. And that works. Like, that works really, really well. I'm just like, but I want to see the distortions. I want to see how you're deforming the character. I love smearing. I love squash and stretch. That's like my jam. That's my shit. And again, look at him. He's like, I really love the acting of this guy because he's so completely about protecting the girl. Like, And that's good acting because you sympathize with him. Instantly, you sympathize with him. Is that this, you can tell this is a good person. This is someone who cares about the safety and well-being and lives of others, which is why he's doing everything he can to practically wrap himself around this girl so that nothing harms her. And I like that a lot. Like, that's just good acting. How many times have I said that's just good acting in this thing? Because, I mean, it's what it is. By the way, can this policewoman be the next, like, Overwatch hero? Just give her a better gun so that she can actually shoot the robots properly, and I'd play as her. And then the little girl is like, I don't know how she got free from that. It's a monkey! And you can see he kind of stands up, like, look at the way his head kind of, like, his shoulders come up first, right? And then the shoulders kind of stop, and then his head keeps rising just a little bit. And that's just, again, you get the sense of, like, almost like a turtle peeking out of his shell, like, as they are rather confused by the flying gorilla that all of a sudden dropped on top of the robots. And here's one thing we're going to have to talk about, which is time distortion. Which is, it's a narrative thing. It's a thing about, like, how you handle editing, where, like, the thing is, if you stop to look at this shot after Winston has landed, why aren't the other robots shooting already? Like, they're robots. They're not going to be scared. They're not going to be confused. It's like, oh, there's an enemy that just crushed some of our guys. Let's fire at him immediately. But because the storytelling needs a moment of peace, it needs this little moment of relief from the people who are being attacked to go, whoa, is that a monkey? And it's not, by the way. He's an ape. He's a member of the large primate species known as, what are they called? Damn, I used to know he's a gorilla. Like, that's, but he's a large primate. He's not a monkey, he's an ape. But the robots aren't firing, like, they're not doing anything, which gives Winston plenty of time to just kind of stand around and chat with these people who are completely out of cover and tremendously vulnerable. But the storytelling needs that moment of peace. It needs that little second of dialogue, those couple of seconds of dialogue to establish the new feeling and dynamic. And by the way, this whole short is a lovely study in how to do a 3-act structure in like 8 minutes. Because, like, we begin with the setup, which is these characters are going on a mission. Okay, what are the stakes? What are the challenges? Well, there's way too few of them. There's not enough of them to fight all the enemies. Oh dear, that's a problem. How will our characters deal with and overcome this? And then Winston says, well, as long as we stick together, we'll be fine. Then we head into, like, this whole sequence of Winston, May, and Tracer fighting the robots. That's basically the second act, when they're doing the thing. And then we'll get to the twist in the third act in a little bit. And again, like, was that a monkey? No, my friend, you should really know this, Captain Robot Brain. It's an ape. But take a look again at the perfectly subtle acting. Like that little... Like, he looks towards a... And this is something, especially with, like, Omnic characters, they don't have faces as such. Like, they don't have eyes where you can move the eyelids around. They don't have eyebrows that are mobile. They don't have lips and mouths. So you have to do all of the acting with body language. So him asking, was that a monkey? He looks at her, and then he does that little movement. Like, that little downwards, like, And that works really well. I love his mustache. I like a lot how much like a dad he looks. He just looks like someone's dad. He doesn't have hair, but he's got a mustache and a soul patch, and, like, he's balding. It's a lovely bit of character design. Let's see, is there anything in this shot? Well, there's probably plenty. I love the effects animation. Look at the way the robots react to being electrocuted, right? You can kind of see them tensing up and then exploding. Which is, again, perfectly sensible. And then again, once again, we get this shot again. Like the same shot we got before of this bird's eye view of the action. And again, we're seeing Tracer's perspective on the scene. As Winston is... Something I want to note, he's taking quite a lot of fire here. Like, he's a tank, he can probably take it, but... You do have a shield barrier, my man. Like, maybe you should use it. You've got enemies all around firing at you. Might be a good idea. But I guess he forgot that ability between Overwatch 1 and 2. So anyway, Tracer comes down. And you can see here, Winston's like, okay, he was doing pretty well, but he's being overwhelmed. He needs some kind of assistance. Fortunately, May is here to help by taking out one robot with like 5 shots. And again, character relationships, which are at the core of this whole goddamn thing. And I love the robots falling over animation, by the way. Like, he's stalking towards Winston. He's, like, predatory and dangerous. Yeah, I'm gonna shoot the monkey in the face. Yeah, blah. And then... Splat! Did I just get hit with a snowball? What the heck happened? Splat! And all of a sudden, he's brought completely off balance. You can see, like, all of that predatory, dangerous energy just vanishes because he's knocked off balance. And, like, his own hand gets glued to his face. And look what his arm does. Like this. If this was a Scooby-Doo cartoon, you just know there'd be some sound effect like boodle-doodle-doodle-doom. And that's just a little moment of like animation levity where the robot just looks silly and stupid. Which I like. Nice work, man. And you can see Winston's like, even though he's being overwhelmed by robots trying to kill him, he's like, good one, May. He still has that fatherly, encouraging relationship to her. Yes, you're doing well, sweetie. Daddy will be with you in a second. I just need to deal with this. And look at May's body language again. You can see she's all, like, look at her. She's like, holy shit, I actually managed to get one. She's surprised that this worked. She's surprised that she had any success at all. And look at her stance. Like, look at her body language. She's got the gun out in front of her in this kind of awkward two-handed, like, not very planted pose. And contrast that with the policewoman who was doing that action pose, like, stealing the gun against her shoulder and being, like, really planted and confident looking when she's firing back in the side-on view. Contrast that with how May is standing here. She's got her, like, her knees kind of together and her feet kind of pointing almost inwards towards each other. It's a very unsteady stance. And she still looks uncertain. And she's like, yay, I did it, hooray. Like, she still looks mousy and kind of unconfident and unsure. And she's not paying attention. So what we're getting established here just through the animation is that, yeah, May has talent, she has ability, she can be useful and helpful, but she's also deeply inexperienced and doesn't know what she's doing. Which is why she almost gets murdered by a robot almost immediately. Except, of course, cheers, love, cavalry's here. Tracer doing frickin' backflips into the scene. And again, coyote time. Tracer appears in the air, and gravity just doesn't affect her. Like, it just doesn't... She's not getting pulled downwards until she's done shooting the robot, and she does a cool flip. And goes, watch your back! And look at her pose. Like, compared to May's, like, that kind of uncertain... Oh dear, I almost got murdered. She's got this action pose thing going on. That she's always got action poses going on. It's lovely. We'll talk about a couple of Tracer's poses and movements later. And as the cavalry arrives... Winston gets the strength to finally deal with this, this extreme edition of Bad Touch. Slam, slam, slam. And so here, we have second act. Heroes are doing well, they're doing their activity, and things seem to be sort of progressing in the right direction. And now, twist in the third act. Oh, they have a kaiju-sized robot. Well, that's not great. And here, for the first time, like, you can see Winston being surprised and losing his confidence for a second. Like, here, he's still got that confident, like, I can handle whatever you're throwing at me. And then it's like, ooh, no, wait, actually, just, oh boy, okay, that's not great. Maybe we can't handle that. That's not good. And lovely effects animation. Like, I love the smoke effects here. Like, and that's something that's interesting about, like, parts of Overwatch, is that they mix this, like, this is like a pure Gundam anime bullshit kind of thing. Are those the giant robots from the Volskaya Industries? Is that what's going on here? Anyway, this is pure anime bullshit, like a giant robot with just guns strapped to it everywhere. But then look at that smoke effect. Like, that's hyper-realistic smoke, which is something Blizzard has always been very good at. And I always liked that mixing, like, of stuff that is patently cartoony, like, patently, utterly cartoony, with extremely realistic environmental effects, like the lighting on the cobblestones. You can see how, like, there's this fire burning over here that's casting light on the wet cobblestones, and these smoke clouds that look hyper-realistic. Like, that tension and contrast between hyper-realistic effects rendering sometimes, and then utter cartooniness. That's a big part of Overwatch's aesthetic for me, especially in these anime shorts, and I like it. I love it. I think it's really good. And you can see that also with the explosions, like, you can see all those sparks flying around. This is not a cartoon explosion. This is not like a Wind Waker explosion. This looks like, well, it's probably not a realistic explosion, but it looks like one. It feels like one. And again, speaking of framing and dominance, here, as the shot hits, Winston is still, like, he's still dominating the frame. He's taking up more than half the frame, but the explosion pushes him out of the frame. It pushes him out of the control that he's been having, out of the confidence that he's been having the whole time. And you can see him trying to recover it here as he looks up at this big problem, which is about to kill them in a really cool way. Chest laser, baby! And here's something to note about May. Like, I've talked a lot about this guy, how his entire body language tells us that his primary priority is keeping the girl safe. Like, he's trying to protect the child. That's the thing he cares about. Now look how May treats the civilians, too. It's the same thing. She's pushing him out of the way before getting herself to safety. Barely. This shot is also important, by the way. And that's something, again, this is showing rather than telling. May is someone who's, like, she's unconfident. She's a little bit incompetent in certain ways because she's never been in a fight before. She's not a soldier. She's a scientist, and she's out of her depth, and she's unsure and uncertain. But her heart is so in the right place. She protects civilians before she protects herself every single time. And we're going to see that again in just a second. As this shot... Now, remember how I talked about... This thing isn't just like a transport machine for the Overwatch crew. This is their home, to a certain extent. They have books there, they have pictures there, they have memories, relationships. Like, this is an important part of Winston's lost Overwatch family. And now it's gone. It gets literally cut in half, it gets literally torn apart. And then it turns out, oh, he's hit some gas lines. Psst. Ba-ba-ba-ba-boom! And everything goes straight to hell. And I like the, like, look at how, like, look at the ragdolling here. Because, like, ragdolling, if you remember, like, gaming in the mid-2000s where ragdolling was all the rage, was like just, okay, we just make the character flop around with absolutely no muscle control whatsoever. Just kind of blah, 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 flop around like a doll that's been thrown on the ground, right? That's not really what's going on here. You can see Winston, he's being thrown by the explosion, but you can see how he tries to retain control of his body. He sort of tries to tense up a little bit, like, ugh. But he's being thrown around, but he's not just a ragdoll. I like his expression here, by the way, too. Like, this is one of the powers of Winston's character design is that he has that giant mouth. So you can do this huge, toothy, like, "Urgh!" So that even in a chaotic shot like this, where it's barely possible to see anything, you can still sense that he's in pain. Like, he's being thrown around and it sucks. And then remember how I talked about May, her heart being in the right place? Also, the girl, look, the first thing she does is try to grab onto her father or the guy. And the first thing he does is try to protect her. And then the policewoman tries to protect them. And then May... She can now, she has the ice gun, she has the ice block walls, she can protect someone, but her first reaction, her immediate instinct, rather than protect herself when there's danger, protect others. And this is like, that's one of the things that made me cry when I watched this thing, is that May's character is communicated so perfectly. Like, this is why... It doesn't matter that she's a little bit incompetent. It doesn't matter that she's inexperienced. It doesn't matter that she's not a soldier, because she's willing to do that. This giant line of explosions coming right the fuck at her, and her first thought before everything else is protect other people. And that's the stuff that gets me right in the heart, man. That's the stuff that reaches into Uncle Skyen's tear ducts and just starts dragging big giant globs of water out of my face. And it's very distracting because it makes me dehydrated. But yeah, that's the thing that got me, is like, May, she's a good girl. Like, she is. She's doing everything she can. And you can't be mad at her for not being competent. Like, that's the thing that makes her so sympathetic is, yeah, she's doing the right thing. And if she was in Hong Kong right now, watching what the Chinese government is doing to those protesters, she'd be ice blocking for them too. Just saying, Blizzard, just saying, your own characters would think that you guys are craven corporate cowards, who are failing at your own company values in order to secure access to a lucrative market for sheer financial gain. Anyway, back to May. Speaking of ragdolling, look at this. Again, the motion blur is so annoying, but like, look at, oh, that looks so painful. You can see she lands on her back, and then look how, like, her legs are going this way, but then her upper body kind of twists around, and like, oh, that doesn't look healthy. Her tits are up here, and her legs are pointing that way. That's not supposed to happen. Oh boy, that's not good. And of course, it's again, we're dealing with cartoon exaggerations, but it works so well to really sell the power with which she's being thrown aside, and it's not good. But there's a reason why the camera doesn't just focus on May immediately. That happens. Again, this is Overwatch's home for Winston. It's his family. This is where they lived, and now the family has been torn apart in a very literal way. Both his old memory of the old family has been torn apart, but also the newfound family of poor May has been rather definitively damaged in this situation. And so what we get here after the twist in the third act is the all is lost moment, which in like storytelling terms is the lowest point for our heroes, like the point where they're completely fucked, everything's going terribly. How will they ever get out of this? They're gonna need some kind of miracle to survive, and this is the moment in storytelling typically. Oh god, just a sec. Finally have to blow my nose. This is the moment in storytelling, typically, where we get, like, the moment where the hero finds their strength and they rise to the challenge, or they overcome their limitations, or they deal with the anxieties that have been holding them back, something like along those lines. And that, of course, is also what's going to be happening. We're going to talk about that in a sec. But now I'm going to have to get this thing some criticism. Because emotionally, in terms of the storytelling, what we have here is the heroes at their lowest point. Like, everything's completely fucked up, everything's gone to shit, they're up against odds they cannot possibly hope to overcome, everyone's damaged, everyone's hurt, everyone's just basically trying to stay alive at the barest, like, they're down to 1 HP, and they're out of elixirs, right? That's what's going on here. And May, in particular, has taken quite a lot of damage, but then we get a close-up on her. Oh no. She's so hurt and wounded. Look at all that damage. Wow. Poor May. Oh no. Oh, she's dying. How will she ever survive all of this? This absolutely fucking nothing that's happened to her. And this is an aesthetic thing about Overwatch. This is something they've done before. This is why I noticed that Winston was taking quite a few shots from the robot soldiers that he was fighting when he landed on the ground there. Winston also has just been smashed by a giant explosion, and yet that you are looking very clean and completely unharmed by anything that has happened to you at any point during this fight, Winston. That's some durable clothing you're wearing there, Winston. Your skin must be made of fucking titanium, Winston. How are even your glasses not damaged, Winston? Like, really? Okay. And this is an aesthetic decision from Blizzard regarding Overwatch, is that they tend to keep their characters on model. By which I mean they tend not to give them combat damage, they tend not to give them visible wounds, but also, as we're gonna see with May here, she's just been thrown around, like, she was ragdolled by that explosion. It was brutal. Like, she was thrown around by that explosion, and yet, her hair is perfect. Like, it's not even her frickin' hair clip fell out. Like, her hair is perfect, she's still got her glasses on. Even the fur around her coat is not singed. And the trouble with that, like, I get the decision for that. Like, showing blood, showing actual physical battle damage, that's something that can actually get you censored in some territories, and I completely understand why Blizzard are not doing it, but still, like, you could do some battle, like, you could do, like, her hood is scorched, and she's got soot all over her face, maybe her hair is getting a little... How is her hairstyle still perfect? Like, what kind of hairspray is this woman using? Because we must have it, and I will market it and make millions, because wow, that is a fantastic hold. L'Oreal, because you're worth it. This is my criticism here, is that emotionally, in terms of the storytelling, the heroes are at their lowest point. They are wounded, they are out, down and out, they can't take much more, they have to run away, they have to escape, but this shot doesn't sell that. Like, all the other shots did such a good job of establishing the stakes here, but here, all is really like, she looks kind of sleepy. like she's got bad gas while she's taking a nap. It's like, ugh, oh boy, oh, I should not have had that burrito. Ugh, oh, well, there go the farts, finally. I can go back to sleep now. Like, it doesn't look like she's hurt. It doesn't look like she's about to die. It doesn't look like she's in trouble. And that... I understand the aesthetic decision, but at least some soot, some scorching, some like, her armor has been shattered a little bit, but physically she's fine. No blood, no open flesh wounds or anything, no spurting fountains of gore that's coming out of her neck or whatever, but at least some kind of physical indication that no, she's not completely physically untouched by the giant explosion that just threw her around. That would be my main criticism of this thing, is that, like, in their obsession with staying on model, and Tracer too, like, you're flipping around through the air 1,500 million miles a minute, Tracer. How is your hairstyle always perfect? That's some anime bullshit, I know, but it's an aesthetic decision that kind of bothers me, because here, at this place, they should be looking disheveled, like they should be looking beaten up, they should be looking down and out. But they don't. They look completely healthy and fine. And that kind of, later on, that undercuts Mercy's saving. Like, Mercy comes in and heals May and brings her back from the brink, right? But that's not, like, but when she doesn't look like she's on the brink, that's not really, that doesn't really make Mercy look powerful. It just looks like she gives her, like, a little glowy fairy dust touch. So that's my criticism, is like that, the aesthetic is conflicting with the storytelling here. Anyway, more good acting. You can see again, which is what's making these characters so sympathetic, is that they're constantly looking out for each other. They're constantly protecting each other. Even here, like, the explosions come down, and Winston raises his arm to protect Tracer and May. And this is the characters, the good characters in these shorts are always doing that. They're always putting themselves between danger and other people. And here, now let's talk a little bit more about setup and payoff. At the start of the short, there's two things that get set up for us. If we stick together, we'll be fine, and then we'll be right behind you, you better. Like, those are two lines that come up in the first part of this short. Here, Winston realizes the situation is hopeless, all is pretty much lost, something has got to give, and he makes the decision, well, okay, I will sacrifice myself. And the reason he makes that decision is because he sees this. Again, setup and payoff. The picture is set up for us. This is important. This is what Winston believes in. More than anything, is Overwatch, his family. Those values that Overwatch stood for, at least in Winston's mind. That's his creed. That's what he believes in. He believes in these people, and he believes in what they stood for back then. And because of that, he realizes what he must do now. He must do what everyone else has been doing all the time in this short, and put himself between danger and the people that he cares about. So, get everyone to safety, right? He tells Tracer. And then May goes, but Winston, you said we should stick together. There's the payoff. Like, before, Winston said, if we stick together, we'll be fine, as a reassurance, a confident reassurance to May that things will be okay because we can handle this. Now, it becomes instead like, but you said we should stick together. Now it becomes a reassuring lie that's being repeated as Winston tries to give them basically an excuse to abandon him to die. Like, he's telling them, run, don't look back, I'll be right behind you. He knows it's a lie. Tracer knows it's a lie. He won't be right behind you because this giant robot with a death laser. Winston can't handle that. Tracer knows it. But she also knows what's necessary. And you can see that realization on her face, like she knows he's lying. But she's also like, God damn it, there's no other way. And then there's the emotional plea, like the reality of the situation comes crashing down. Winston's gonna die. That's what's being set up here. Winston's gonna die to save his friends. And yet Tracer says, you better be right behind us. Like, she's not giving him permission to just throw his life away. And that faith, like, that she has faith in him, that he can survive this, gives Winston a little bit of heart. Like, he goes from not really, like, he's like, oh god, I'm gonna die, to I'm gonna do this. Even if it costs me my life, I'm gonna protect my friends. And then the slow-mo hero shot, as our hero, alone, charges out to face the approaching enemy army. And his friends look back, knowing that this is not going to end well for anyone. And the music swells. And here's where, like, one thing that I think the storyboarding could do better. Winston should have some kind of plan. Like, what he's doing here is just, he's just stepping out and going, here I am, shoot me in the face. I'm a monkey. And what I would like to see is him preparing to try something. Like, maybe he's overcharging his weapon so it'll explode, or like he's getting ready to leap, or he's preparing to dodge when they fire the first shot and then try and get into combat and delay them. One problem I have here is that as far as the cinematic and the storytelling tells us, Winston just stands there and waits to die. Which is a bit, and that's to set up the moment that comes next, where Genji rushes in and saves him in a clear Deus Ex Machina. But it's still a thing where, like, it would have been nice to see, okay, Winston has some kind, it's a plan that's probably not going to work, but he's trying to do something rather than just quietly accepting that he's going to die. And it's all in the service of setting up Genji's heroic entrance, of course, and you can see, like, the determination on Winston's face. This is the face of a hero. Like, this is the face of a hero who knows what he has to do. But again, like, it feels like this is the face of someone who's preparing to do something, kinda. But I would like to see just a cutaway shot to him, like, gripping his gun and getting ready to do a thing, rather than looking so passive. Anyway, here comes an extremely overpowered ninja. This is such a fucking badass shot, like... It's cartoon ridiculous, but it's so fucking badass. And, like, theoretically, Genji can parry anything, so... I guess it works. And again, look at the way weight is being managed here. And also squash and stretch. You can see how here as he lands, his lower body, his neck completely extends in order to really sell that snap as he lands on the ground and all his weight comes down. They do that little bit of squash and stretch. And again, you can see here as he prepares to swing around and parry. Look at his arm, like the way his hand gets distended. And here, the sword. Like, you can see the sword literally describes a curve. Like, you can see the tip is, like, literally down here. It's a straight sword, but because we're selling the power of the curvature of his motion, like, shum, we're doing that distortion of the thing in order to sell the power, and it works really well. And I really like this wide shot. Like, we go from this extreme close-up that's kind of disorienting, kashow, to this wide shot where we see the shot being deflected. Boom! Get wrecked, robots! And then we see him rear up to parry the next one. Boom! Smashing this robot in the face. And then this lovely motion. You can see him after he parries that one. He sinks down, he drops his weight down, and then poof, all that power directed right back upwards as he deflects the last shot back at the evil robot. And just inflicts an absolutely, extremely overpowered amount of damage on the thing. Like, I'm pretty sure Genji could 1v1 this fucking robot, but he just chooses not to. Typical Genjis, honestly. They don't know how to pick targets in a team fight. And then, again, aesthetics of motion. The robot is huge, but again, it's affected by gravity in the same way that everything else is. But look how it moves in this shot. It moves almost in slow motion as it loses its balance and kind of has to try and steady itself against the building. It moves in slow motion, which helps sell the sense of scale of this thing, that it is absolutely huge, so they slow down the movement of it just a little bit to really sell the idea that millions of tons of, like, or, well, hundreds of thousands of tons of metal are being thrown around here. And then there's just a complete badass shot, like, with the blade cooling down after what it's just done, with steam coming off it. And Genji like, yeah, I'm a badass cyborg ninja. I am so fucking cool. And again, remember what we talked about earlier, when Winston comes in and saves the civilians, there's this suspiciously long period of time where the robots just don't seem to be bothering to attack anyone. That happens again here because what the story needs is time for this moment to breathe, this moment of relief, like we were at the absolute lowest possible point. For our heroes, Winston is literally going to die, and now all of a sudden, that complete release of tension, that complete relief, as we realize things are going to be okay. Like, we can handle this. I'm not gonna... Like, that is so fucking cool. Genji's new design is so... I should do some discussion about the Overwatch redesigns, but this shot is just absolutely motherfucking badass. I mean, come on. Goddamn cold. Now look at Winston's face change. Genji, he smiles, and look at that little subtle... Back to the subtle facial acting stuff. Here, look at his eyes now. Look at his eyes now. Look, he opens his eyes just a little bit wider. He almost goes wide with, like, almost childlike wonder, going, he came. He really came. Dad came to see my baseball game. Yay! Like, that moment of joy at seeing a friend is being sold really well by Winston. And I wish it was sold better by Tracer, but this is something that's sort of a minor complaint I have about Overwatch's character design sometimes in general, is especially on the women, because they're all designed to be, like, they're designed very much after sort of a Disney princess principle. A lot of the time, they don't feel as expressive as some of the male characters can be. And that bothers me a little bit. It's a bit of a pity. It's not that they're bad. Like, I'm not sitting here shitting on it saying, oh, it's terrible, it sucks. But it's just a little bit less good. Like, where Winston has all of this, like, he's got these eyebrows, and he's got these nostrils, and you can see the skin on his face moving, and he's got these big lips. All of this stuff that makes him really expressive. And you can see, like, his mouth widening, and his eyes getting wider, and his eyebrows going up, and stuff like that. And then Tracer's, like, relative to that, like, she's somewhat immobile. Like, she feels somewhat less expressive. Which is sort of a general criticism I have of Overwatch's character design, is that sometimes it kind of holds back the characters a little bit, and that's a bother. Also, very obviously, they couldn't get Genji's voice actor in, or just didn't bother getting him in for this thing, so he just shows up and he stares at them, he's like, ninja stars, bye-bye! I'm off to own a whole bunch of tiny little robots instead of dealing with the big problem that's about to kill us all. And again, the shot composition is really good here. Look at that little group of people just kind of huddling together back there. That's adorable, isn't it? But it's also really good shot composition in that Winston takes up, like, the main part of the frame in the center, then Tracer, and then the group of three back here. They all get their own space in the frame, so they're all sort of equally part of the frame, even though they're at very different distances from the camera. And then this shot, like, this is lovely. I really like that. I really like this thing. Vroom! Like, look at that. Look at how it kind of careens over. Look how the robot goes flying. Is like, he's about to do, like, oh, I'm about to shoot down and wah! Like, boing! And things, and, like, debris and things getting thrown around. I really like this shot. This is so lovely and dynamic. It's a really good action shot as the thing spins around. And you can see the robot is just kind of scrambling to hold on. And then, woof! Hammer down! Here comes the cavalry. And again, distortion. Look at Reinhardt's hammer. Look how it bends. Like, it completely, almost like a noodle, is bent. Even though it's got, and I also love the arc that's described by the rocket exhaust of his hammer. Like, that arc right there really sells, like, the big swing of the hammer. Kapow! And it works really well. One criticism I have is, where the hell did Brigitte come from? Like, that... hang on. Reinhardt lands here. Brigitte is presumably also in the truck because she's going to be standing next to Reinhardt in a minute. But the flail comes in from, like, left, almost as though she's over here, and kind of whips around and smashes, and then it kind of whips to the right and smashes around. And then she's standing next to Reinhardt. So I'm like, how? What? It doesn't matter so much because, like, we get the point that Brigitte is also there, and she just smashed a bunch of robots with her flail. But I had a little moment of disorientation where I couldn't tell where things were supposed to be. I do like that we see her weapon before we see her. Like, it snaps into her thing, and then we get the reveal. I am Brigitte Lindholm. I am from Sweden. As she does this L'Oreal shake of the hair, which I just like. Like, it's something I've always liked about Brigitte's character design is that it does a really good job of emphasizing her femininity without resorting to, like, titty plates or, like, exaggerated intimations of her ass or her vagina or whatever. Like, stuff that in pop culture sometimes with ladies in robot suits, like, like, they basically just look like the bikini models, like, but here you can see the hourglass shape of the suit, and you can see she does the little hair flip, and she's undoubtedly feminine, but she doesn't look like, you know, a titty model for some dumb reason. And that's something I've always liked about Brigitte's character design. It walks that line very well between having a character who is female, who's beautiful, but who's not, you know, like, where the beauty is not defined in terms of, oh, she's sexy and hot. Which is nice. That's a nice thing about her character design, especially. And this is also just a really good shot. Like, I love Reinhardt's little, like, that little flex of his. You see that? As he raises the hammer up, he does that little flex, gets a bit of grip on the hammer. Kind of self-satisfied. You can kind of tell he's satisfied with what he's just, yeah, I kicked those robots' ass, haha, right? And that's quite nice. And again, look at Tracer's body language. Woohoo! Cavalry's here! Cheerio, pip pip, top hat and all that! And also the way she relates to Winston, I love this little... Is that a... Oh, there's squash and stretch here. Look at that. Look at her fingers. Look at how they get bent back as she kind of... She leaps onto him and grabs him. It's like, Winston, the cavalry's here! And look at... Look at how... This is something I really like about the way they animate Winston in social scenes. Look at this. She grabs him, she pulls his shoulder, and then you can see kind of how his goes, oh, bro! And his shoulder moves first, and then his head kind of gets dragged behind it in sort of the delayed reaction. Then he's like looking over at her, and then he kind of, you can see how he sways and rolls back a little bit with like her weight pulling on him. Again, nothing like sort of supernatural or magical or anything, but just really good basic acting animation. God, these shots are so good. And here comes Echo, a character we know nothing about except that McCree got her out of a thing for a reason. Who knows? But she's like very sexy robot. She's basically like this Overwatch version of Eve from WALL-E. And this is a lovely shot, by the way. Like, I really like the composition of the shot in that, look, we have this central feature of the shot, which is the road, right? Like, this is sort of the central organizing feature, and then everything else is on either side of the road or on the road. But the road is, like, cutting straight through the frame. And then her movement is this kind of S-curvy path, like, flying in, crossing over the road here, poof, swooping up, and then she swoops back over to the other side, shooting some robots with her delayed explosion things. And then we get, again, this is like a passing flying shot from her perspective. And I like the aesthetic of her motion, and I complimented how they managed to make Brigitte feminine without making her look ridiculous, but they have given this robot kind of a lot of butt, haven't? Like, that's that curve of the thing, like, oh, they definitely wanted this robot to be hot. Which I don't mind. Like, I like hot robots. Who doesn't? It's a little much. Like, it's a little much. I do like her face. Like, I do like the way that they're doing Echo's face, because it's sort of a projection technology where you can see, like, this thing is like a transparent film. You can see like the neck and the aperture behind her head and like the clouds behind her through her transparent face. I think that's really cool. Like, that's a really cool way to do a robot face. Look at Winston when he realizes who she is. It's like, wait, who the hell is Echo? Again, like a little boy, right? Like, his family is coming back to him and is so happy. And then, of course, Mercy appears here. Like, she's already in the shot right here, but she's being announced by this golden angelic light from the heavens as a saving angel descends upon the battlefield. And this was the point in the first time I watched this when I really, like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. Because it's a beautiful shot. Again, like, again, look at this, like that shaft of light right at the center, as though the grace of God herself is descending upon the battlefield. It's just beautiful, and it's well done. And we've been stuck with Dad this whole time, like Dad who's trying his very best to hold the family together, but who's clearly also struggling. And so here comes Mom to help. Team Mom Mercy. Like, and the the reference to angels, like, I know Mercy is technically supposed to be more of a Valkyrie, but like, no, she's an angel. That's what's being said here. And again, here, like, let's get you back into fight. But it's like, oh wow, thank you for healing me of all of the damage that I have taken. Thank God. And this is kind of where I felt like, couldn't you have, like, damaged Mei and given her all, like, combat damage and stuff, and then once Mercy arrives, she does a healing wave thing, and then everybody's combat damage is repaired, and they look perfectly pristine again, because that's science magic that Mercy can do. Because here, like, Mercy doesn't look powerful here. Like, she doesn't really look like she's doing anything. She just looks like, I am giving you a very glowy shoulder touch. But it doesn't look like it did anything to Mei, it just looked like it made her glow for a second. So again, that lack of damage is a problem. And by the way, speaking of setup and payoff, here we see, oh hey, there's a giant hole in this robot as we can get into the interior of the character. Wow, that seems like a vulnerability that could be exploited for some kind of purpose later on. And you can see they're doing everything they can to make you aware of the hole, because like there's sparks and smoke and light, so you're gonna know that there's a hole in this robot once you see this shot. And then, and by the way, here's where we can talk about the sound design. Let me just turn off the music for a second. So, yes, no, I hate the spacebar sometimes. As the rest of the members of Overwatch come in, the orchestral music swells. We get this massive heroic da 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 da, like this swelling of relief and heroic music as their friends show up to help and the family's reunited and everything is hopeful and good again. Da 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 da. Let's get you back in the fight. And then that. Right, all of the music stops, instantly stops, because the robot goes. It does this like klaxon sounding, and all the music stops completely, and it fires that death laser beam that almost killed everyone just a second ago, and then, boom! The moment the laser hits the shield, the music comes back. Because you know what? Fuck you! You can't stop the music anymore. We're Overwatch, we're all together, and so long as we stick together, we'll be fine. Brilliant sound design, like brilliant direction of the sound. Because the thing that would have been so easy would be to, instead of stopping the music, once the robot goes, I'm gonna shoot you with my laser, to start up some ominous music to go, dun 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 dun, something like that. But instead we get silence. And then, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the heroic music, poof, bursts back into existence as we realize emotionally, holy shit, we can take this guy. We can win now. It's no longer Winston standing alone, ready to die. This is a group of people who have the capabilities and the power to resist this evil. And so, like, the storytelling is just really good. And, speaking of the let's see. Here again, the same thing with the music. Like, we have heroic music as they're fighting the robots and saving the civilians. Da-da-da-da-da. You got it. What was that? Again, the robot shows up on screen. All the music stops. And we get that brrr, like that klaxon sound. And no music and silence. And then once he starts firing, then we get the the choir comes in with this dramatic, like, Dies Irae sounding thing. But that, like, the music and the sound design in this short is just absolutely immaculate. It's fantastic. And I love it. Like, I love how, and again, that's one of the reasons why I fucking started crying, is because the music does such a perfect job of selling the mood. And music is one of the most emotionally manipulative things in the universe. And here it's just brilliant. I love the effects animation here too, like, because you really get the sense of, like, this laser is like a tide, like an avalanche, like some kind of oncoming force that they're standing against in extremely literal terms. And the reason Brigitte and Reinhardt can do it is because they do interlocking shields. They stand together in an extremely literal way. Which, again, it's so on the nose, but fuck me, it works. And here's another criticism I have in terms of the story, because the story we have here is Mei goes from being uncertain, she doesn't really have a place in Overwatch, she doesn't really, she's new, she doesn't feel like she belongs, she's in this seat that she can't fill, like she's taking the spot that she can't really fill, she can't really be what Overwatch needs her to be, she is a little bit incompetent, she gets hurt, because of course she does, she's the rookie soldier with no experience, but she gets hurt trying to protect people, and the arc of her character is going from there to that, from that uncertain person who's worried about getting in the way to someone who's confident and, like, who has found a place and found a home to belong in, being part of Overwatch and coming into her own with her own powers. And this is one thing where it's like, I wish it wasn't Winston who said, Mei, your backpack. Like, I wish it was Mei who said, I know what to do. My backpack, Tracer, give me a pulse bomb. And then Winston goes, that's a brilliant idea. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna take the thing, I'm gonna throw it. Tracer, you get it inside the robot. Genji, you protect Tracer from the robot hand that's coming down. Reinhardt and Brigitte, you keep protecting us from the laser blast, so on and so forth. But I feel like Mei's character arc here is undercut just a little bit, that it's Winston who comes up with the idea. Mei, your backpack. He's the one who makes the connection. And then Mei springs into action. Like, then she does, oh, right, that could work. Like, then she becomes, like, slightly the main character for a second. But I would really have liked it if the end of Mei's narrative arc in this short was that she's the one who goes, I know how to help. I know how to fix this. Like, that would have been good. But that, it's a nitpick. But it's just a little hole in that beautiful narrative arc that she has that I would have liked to see play out differently. And I like this shot a lot too, because it's so simple, but it works so well. Mei, your backpack, and then it's, she thinks about it. She's like, she takes a second to realize. Look at the backpack, and then this zoom. I love this zoom in, like, oh yeah, it's like a cartoon again. It's so cartoony and silly, but it works so well, especially with her emotion. Like, you can really see her go, this could work, yes. Like, you can see the hope lighting up in her eyes, and that zoom in does such a great job of selling that. I really love it. But yeah. Again, but like I said, we still see that transformation of Mei. Like, the moment she realizes, I know how to help, I know how to do this, her body language changes. Like, all of that mousy kind of uncertainty and kind of shrinking into herself and being, and not quite knowing what to do with her hands and stuff like that, all of that is gone. Look at her body language now. She knows exactly what she's doing. Tracer, pulse bomb, boom. Let's see, she's working on the thing that's going to come up in just a second. There. Like, I know exactly what to do. That confidence that all of a sudden comes into a body language. Again, brilliant visual storytelling. Now, one thing about Overwatch, like one criticism you might have if you're thinking logically about things in the same way that, hey, why are those robots just kind of standing there without shooting when Genji shows up? He's not doing anything. We could totally just take him out with one shot right now. Well, because the story demands it. And here you can see, one thing in Overwatch is like, all of the characters are running around without helmets, pretty much, and that's... I don't know that much about military tactics, but I know running around with your head uncovered in an environment where debris and bullets and laser blasts are flying around is probably not very safe, but here we can see exactly why. Things are getting hot! Like, we can see Reinhardt is warning people that the shields won't last much longer. It's not... yeah, we don't get much to work with here, right? Like, we don't really get much emotion to see on Reinhardt's face because there isn't, he doesn't have a face, he has a helmet. And that's why Overwatch characters don't wear helmets, even though logically they should. Fortunately, he has Brigitte with him, and her face communicates everything. As the laser blast intensifies, you can see she's gritting her teeth, you can even see they're being pushed back just ever so subtly in the frame, right? She starts here, and then by the end of the shot, you can see how far away she is from her starting position. She's literally being pushed back by the laser blast. And you can see she's gritting her teeth more and like more and more effort is going into holding this back. This is also a lovely shot. I would not be surprised if they're doing a little bit of distortion. Like, when you have these shots where, like, she's reaching towards the camera with this, like, this extreme perspective thing, sometimes you can actually distort the character model and literally make parts of the model larger in order to really sell the depth of that, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening here. But this is just a lovely shot of Tracer, isn't it? Like, and again, her personality is on display. Like, you can see that bubbling confidence never leaves her. Ah, goddamn cold. And then there's Echo, a character I still don't really know what to make of. Like, I think in terms of what's being communicated about her gameplay abilities, it's like she's got some delayed blast thing. But again, look at the way she flies. She starts here, and then up, and then down, and then swooping. Like, there's these constant S curves going on in the way that she flies, almost like a bee. And again, you can see she swoops over to the left here, and then over to the right, spins around, and then gets ready to, I guess, do some more stuff. Also, look at the squash and stretch here. It's a little hard to see, but see there, like how she kind of squeezes into a slightly smaller shape, and then she kind of spreads out again as she comes up. Which, again, does a lot to sell, like, the smoothness and the swaying of the motion that she's doing. But again, from the visual storytelling perspective, no one person defeats the robot. Like, it's a teamwork effort. Echo is running distraction. Reinhardt and Brigitte are doing the defending of the team as they're setting up for the thing. Mei prepares the payload. Winston throws it. Tracer catches it in midair in a second. And, oh, I love this. Like, look, this is something... They're really good at animating Winston so that you remember that he's gorilla. Like, he's not animated like a human. So you can see he does this... He pivots over his own arm and does this jump, and then he spins around and that's such a... It's such a gorilla-like move. Rather than just doing it a human way, like throwing it like a baseball player, he's doing this throw that feels like the kind of throw that a gorilla would do. And then we get this lovely little shot. So what's being done narratively here is we're setting up a ticking time bomb, which is what the pulse bomb is, where you can see the timer ticks down. Beep. Beep. So that we know, okay, there's a limited amount of time to pull off whatever it is they're trying to do right now. Tracer catches in midair. Genji comes in from the side with a save once again, doing this ridiculously cool ninja sword move, spinning through the air. And just like again, Genji, you could clearly 1v1 this bastard. What the hell are you? Where were you? What were you doing? Honestly, we wouldn't need this complicated ice bomb explosion plane if you would just do your damn job and use your ult on the right enemy. Honestly. Anyway, Genji protects Tracer as she's delivering the payload. And then, I like this so much again. You can see Tracer here is like, oh, I have misaimed this a little bit. Like, she's been destabilized from going through the hand. You can see her kind of flailing in the air, like, uh-oh, I need to get over there, I need to get over there. Flailing with her legs, and then using her power to do the thing. Gets her in where she's supposed to go. Do a little tumble. Place the thing safely. Beep, beep. And then activate the chrono blah blah thing. And then this lovely shot here. Like this. Oh, I love this so much. Look at that. Look at that lovely... Again, that tension between realism and cartoonishness. Where she kind of... balancing like a cartoon character as she comes out of this thing. This little slightly silly, sort of jaunty, very perky, happy girl kind of animation from right out of a cartoon. But it works so well for her character. Like that she has this moment of almost losing my balance and then gets back on her feet. And then just more lovely effects animation. Like, this snow is so good. And the thing starts to crumble. Like, that again, the effects animation teams on Blizzard are just absolutely brilliant, because this looks exactly like some kind of an avalanche. Like, it looks so good. And then, brilliant. And that, again, from a filmmaking perspective, we get the robot is defeated, boom, we get this whiteout. It also serves as literally a fade to white, which is like a cut from one scene to another, as all of a sudden we're looking up at a clear blue sky and lovely peaceful snowflakes falling down, and children are laughing and birds are singing, I see trees of green, red roses too, I see them bloom for me and you. And everything's totally fine. There's no more robots left. They're all gone. Genji killed them all off screen because he's OP. Something like that. Because the threat is over. Everything's good. Nothing's bad anymore. All the things that used to be on fire aren't on fire anymore. All the cars are fine. The cafe is cool. Nothing's knocked over or burning or destroyed. Yay, hooray. Like, and again, it's not subtle at all, but it works really well emotionally for what's going on as the girl is playing with May's adorable. Like, look at that little face. And look how one eye and then the other one. You can see that little delay as it heads into this smiling face, and he kind of waggles his little wings and goes, come, chase me, Susie, yay! Wiggle, wiggle, waggle, waggle, as she's running around trying to chase him around. And it's adorable! That's very cute. And we see that despite all the fire and the fraying and all the damage and all the pain and all the trouble, the Overwatch family has survived. Like, that's what the picture symbolizes. Overwatch, the family, that connection, those shared values, has survived the turmoil and the damage. It's still there. It got a little frayed around the edges, but it's still there. And I do like Reinhardt is in exactly the same place in the frame. Oh, God, I'm cold. As the picture comes down, which is a good way to transition from one into the other. And Tracer's butt looks magnificent as ever. Oh God, the fan artists are gonna have a field day with this. And you can see here again, May is a little bit like, wow, these are famous heroes functionally from legend from her perspective. And you can see again, she's back to being slightly uncertain, slightly not sure what she's doing, as Reinhardt, Lord of Personality, has taken over the entire scene. And by the way, hey, Brigitte, where are you looking? You're not looking at her back, that's for damn sure. Where's that eye line going, Brigitte? What is it that you're staring at? I'm just saying. Anyway, hi, Trace. And I like Brigitte's animation here because, again, remember what we talked about, like, you can see how she's kind of standing stiffly. It's like, you can see she's kind of flipping her arms a little bit. It's gonna have to wait. And she's like, oh, she's a little uncertain and stuff. And then she's like, hi, Tracer. And she's kind of leaning forward a little bit uncertainly. And then Tracer realizes, Brigitte, wow, you've grown. And this lovely shot, like, look at that. As Tracer kind of pulls her down, you can see how she kind of, whoa, because she's a little bit off balance. Because just like Tracer does to Winston, she pulls people off balance in her exuberance and excitement. This lovely face, like, that's fantastic. Let me just get my phone on silent so it doesn't disturb us. There we go. And you can see May here. Like, you can see May is literally in Reinhardt's shadow. Like, these people are full of, like, lit up by sunlight. May is literally in shadow right now. And then Reinhardt notices her because Tracer introduces her. And when Tracer introduces her, Reinhardt moves out of the way. And May literally steps into the sunlight. She literally steps into the spotlight, as it were, as the other characters begin to acknowledge her. And that's just, again, from a filmmaking perspective, excellent storytelling. And I really like how they handle Tracer, like, in terms of her animations. Like, oh, right, I need to introduce May. So she jumps up into the air. Again, a little bit of coyote time when she just kind of hangs there. And then, zoom. And you can see the trail that indicates where she's gone. And then she kind of just pops out behind May like that. She kind of shows up. That's such a lovely cartoony thing. And it's like, hi guys, nice to meet you. And Reinhardt makes a dad joke because of course he does. And look how Brigitte reacts. It's like, oh, for God's sake. And Mercy is like, she just kind of, yes, well, that's Reinhardt. Yeah, he's always been like that. And of course, Tracer finds it funny. Because of course she does. Of course she finds it funny. And May is still kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing, but you can see she's literally being pulled into the group dynamic. She's being pulled into the family. And it works so damn well. Yeah. Anything else to talk about before we end this thing? Not really. Because, like, see... just lots of good character animation. Like, look, the characters are relating to each other. You can see, like Tracer doing this, like, cheerful bending forwards, asking May about, hey, how you doing, what you doing about? And Reinhardt being interested and attentive and fatherly, and people having a conversation over here. And then there's like, are we back? And they are all looking at Winston now. Like, Monsieur, does this mean Overwatch is back? Everyone looks to Winston for the answer. Because it's his family. He's the one who brought them back together. Like, he's the one who's, well, the linchpin of it all, ultimately. And then we get the poses. Like, the wings go up, May leans on her droid, Tracer does her hero pose, Genji just kind of stands there. And yes, Overwatch is back. And, like, I think this is why they didn't want to do combat damage on the characters, is because they needed this final shot of everybody looking perfectly Overwatch ready in the final shot, where everyone's looking, yes, heroic, and we're ready to be Overwatch again. Where I would have just said, let's just have Mercy come with a magic healing wave that fixes everyone instead. Like, that would have been my approach to solving that. Anyway, the leadership of Blizzard remain just bastard snake people who would sell their own mothers if it gave their shareholders a larger share of cash in the next fiscal quarter. But goddamn, do they hire a lot of very good people to make very good stuff for them. And I love going through it. God help me, I love it. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, good grief, hour and 41-minute long video. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. If you've somehow managed to stick through all this and enjoyed it, well, you can hit the like button, comment button, subscribe button, and all those other helpful buttons that allow a YouTube channel to stay alive. And I know it's like getting asked to hit the like button is tedious and annoying, but we ask because we can literally see on our like statistics that if we ask people to hit the like button, more people will hit the like button. And it actually is kind of important because that's how YouTube decides whether to show our videos to people. So I don't like doing it either, but it's the world we live in. And the other world we live in is the one where I have to pay rent with money instead of 2-hour-long videos about cartoon shorts that are only like 8 minutes long. So, Patreon is where if you want to support the channel directly with any amount of money per month, then you can head on over there and sign up for a subscription. I would be very grateful for that. And if you don't want to do a monthly subscription, then I've got a tip jar or two down in the description as well, where you can give me a one-time thing to say, hey, wow, that was a lot. Boy, you should really find better things to do with your time. Here's $3 for you to go out and meet people or something. Then you can do that down there. And if you don't want to support me on Patreon or anything like that, that's completely fine. I'm just happy that you watched the video this far. But I would ask you to, at least, if there's other content creators who you like people whose work you watch regularly and like they do nice videos and you'd like them to be able to keep making them, consider supporting them directly. Because, like, for online content creators, $1 can be the same as thousands of views on a video. Literal thousands of views. Like, because, like, ad revenue pays bloody well nothing, almost. So, especially for smaller creators, especially for people who don't have that many subscribers, that tiny little bit of support can make a huge amount of difference. So, even if it's not me, please consider supporting content creators directly when you can, with whatever you can, because it matters a lot more than you think, and that $1 donation matters a lot more than it feels like. Anyway, if you have not enjoyed this video, then I deeply congratulate you for sitting through it. Wow. Boy, yeah, you deserve the dislike. Like, you can hit it. That's fine. You have earned that dislike button at this point, my friend. You are more than welcome to hit it. I will take the L, because thank you for giving me all that watch time, I guess. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.